Hi, thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to give you a preview of the 2021-22 Fafsa. Some of the topics that we're going to go over is we're going to give you an overview of the home page, the login page, and we're going to show you two different application scenarios. So a dependent student with parent data and an independent student. Some of the items that you're going to need is your FSA ID. If you haven't filled out an FSA ID yet, it's strongly recommended that you fill one out before you begin your FAFSA. You can watch our video on FSA ID if you need assistance creating one. If you are a dependent student, you will want to fill one out for your parent as well. For the FAFSA application, you will need your 2019 tax return information. This is what you obtain from your tax preparer, and your 2019 W-2s. This is what you obtained from your employer as far as wages that you've earned for that year. If you are a dependent student, you will need these two items for your parent as well. You will want to more than likely have your Social Security card handy, as we will need your Social Security number and we will need to report the name as it appears exactly on your Social Security card. For dependent students, you will want to have this information for your parents as well. If you are a permanent resident, you will want to have your permanent resident card handy, as you will need to report the number. This page that you see here is studentaid.gov. You can also arrive there by going to fafsa.gov. This is where you are going to fill out your FAFSA application. So something to keep in mind is that the page that you go to fill out your FAFSA must end in .gov. It should not end in .com or .org. It is a free application, so you shouldn't be charged for it, and it is created by the Department of Education, so it should always end in .gov. If you are going to be filling out the application for the first time or renewing it, what you'll want to do is click where it says New to the FAFSA process, Start Here. If you're simply making a correction or adding the school, then you will be able to just click the login feature down at the bottom. The first step to logging into the FAFSA is to click I am the student. Here is where you will use your FSA ID. So you will want to enter your FSA ID number or username, your email address, or the mobile number that you use to create the FSA ID, and of course your password. This will allow you to log into the FAFSA page. You will be then given this disclaimer, and on the disclaimer you're going to want to read it thoroughly and accept if you agree, and it will allow you to move forward. This page is really important to pay attention to. So what you're seeing here shows two different FAFSA years. Depending on what semester you're planning to attend your college or university, you want to make sure that you fill out the correct FAFSA. You can fill out both applications if you like, and if you are planning on attending multiple years. For this particular tutorial, we are going to go ahead and look at the 2021-2022 FAFSA, and that application is effective fall of 2021. So if you're planning on taking classes prior to then, you want to make sure that you also fill out the 2021 FAFSA. So in order to move forward, you'll want to click that button that says Start 2021-2022 FAFSA. It's really important that you fill out the application between October 1st and March 2nd. This is the best time to fill out the application to take advantage of lots of free aid that's available to you. This screen right here comes directly after selecting your year. The save key that you would be creating in this particular page will allow you to save your application and allow you to return to complete it a later time. If the application is saved, say you get interrupted for whatever reason, this save key will allow the application to be saved for 45 days, and you will be able to return and complete the application without having to redo any of it and then resubmit it. If you complete the application in one sitting, it's not likely that you'll need the save key again. This particular section just allows you to take a look at a little bit more information on the Fafsa. You can click on each of the arrows for each question and it will give you a little more information. It will give you Fafsa help, information on the documents and how to sign the Fafsa and much more. This particular scenario that we're going to look at today is for a dependent student with parent data. All Fafsa applications are going to first begin with the student's information. So even though we're looking at a dependent student application in this scenario, both your dependent and your independent student will begin with student demographics, school selection, and dependency status. After that, that's when the applications vary depending on your dependency status. So you want to first start off by verifying the information that's listed here. So at this point, because you've logged in with your FSA ID, some of this information should be populated for you already. So you'll just want to verify and then proceed. Here you'll want to provide an email address, even if you didn't provide one on your FSA ID, and a phone number. This email address is really important because this is going to determine where all of the information about your financial aid and your Fafsa application will go to. It's also a great tool because every year Fafsa will remind you when it's time to renew your application or if there are any other documents that may be needed and proceed to inform you to contact your school. So you want to be mindful of the email address that you provide here. You'll want to provide a mailing address, so a permanent mailing address where you're going to get secure mail. This is where Fafsa will mail you certain information if necessary. The next question will ask about student residency and eligibility. The first part of this question will ask you which state you've lived in for the last 5 years. This particular scenario, because it is a sample screenshot, addresses the state of Iowa. But if you're attending Hartnell, you're more than likely a resident of California. You will go ahead and indicate what state, if you've lived in California for at least 5 years. This question is, of course, tied to the address that you reported. So if you're an out-of-state student for us, this question may look a little different. You want to report if you've lived in that particular state for at least 5 years. If you haven't, it'll proceed to ask you which state you've lived in for the last 5 years or so. Next, it'll ask you if you are a U.S. citizen. If you're not a U.S. citizen, you can go ahead and select the option where it says eligible non-citizen, and it will ask you to provide your permanent resident number. If you are not a permanent resident and you are not a U.S. citizen, I would encourage you at that point to fill out your state application. For California, if you meet the requirements, you may fill out a DREAM Act application at dream.csac.ca.gov. For those proceeding with the application, what you're going to want to do here is go ahead and move forward by clicking the next button. The next question will ask you about your education. It will ask what your high school completion status will be when you begin college of the year that you're filling out. For example, if you're filling out the 2021-2022 application, it will want to know what your high school completion status will be fall of 2021. If you'll be graduating this year or have already received a high school diploma or GED, you'll want to indicate so here. It will also ask you what degree or certificate you will be working on that year. So you can indicate either a first bachelor's degree, an associate's degree. This will all depend on what degree you will be working on that fall. Next, it will ask you if you will have your first bachelor's degree before you begin the academic year. You will indicate yes or no. And lastly, it will ask you if what your grade level will be that particular academic year. So you can indicate never attended college first year attended before second year, and it will give you a couple of other options if those two don't meet your criteria. Additionally, it'll ask if you're interested in working federal work study. Federal work study is on-campus employment, so a lot of you will see federal work study listed as estimated on your award letter. This particular award can only be earned through on-campus employment. If you're interested, you would mark yes, or you can mark no. If you're not really sure at this time, you can also mark I don't know. Next, the application will ask you if you are male or female. The response to this question is used to determine if the applicant needs to register with the Selective Service. Most male citizens or male immigrants between the ages of 18 to 25 must register with the Selective Service to receive federal aid. This requirement applies to any person that is assigned the sex of male at birth. After you've answered that question, you will be asked if you've already registered for Selective Service. If you answer no, you can request by the following question to have the Fafsa register you with the Selective Service system. If you're over the age of 26 and have not registered with the Selective Service, you may want to contact your financial aid office to find out of any additional forms that you may need to fill out. In this section, you will report your driver's license. If you do not have a driver's license, you may skip this section by clicking Next. You will then be asked if you are a foster youth or were in the foster care system at any point. Then you will be asked to report the highest school completed by your parent. There are a number of options here. There is even an option of I don't know if you're not sure at this time. After you've completed the demographics section for your student, it will ask a couple of other questions. So here it's going to ask you the name of the high school that you attended. This is a search feature, so you can enter the name of your high school, the city was located, and the state, and search. It will bring up a list of schools that meet that criteria, and you will be able to select which is the school that you attended. Next, you will be asked to report what colleges or universities you're planning on attending. You don't necessarily have to be accepted into all of these colleges or universities just yet, but if there are colleges that you're applying to, colleges that you're interested in, you'll want to report them here. You can report up to 10 colleges at a time. For example, if you're attending a university but might want to take a summer class that year at a community college, you may want to list the community college. If you're attending a community college but are looking to transfer mid-year or later, you may want to list both the community college and the university. Once again, you can list up to 10 colleges at a time. Once you've entered the information, it will show the name of the college or university that meets the criteria. You'll want to select them by clicking the box, and you may add more schools if you choose. Once you've selected the school of choice or schools of choice, it will ask you to select your housing plans for each school. Your options can include on-campus, off-campus, and with parent. Next, it'll move on to determine if you're a dependent or an independent student. It will ask you what your marital status is. In this scenario, the student is indicating that they are single. Next, it will ask, do you now have or will have children who will receive more than half of their support from you between July 1st, 2021 and June 30th of 2022. So something to keep in mind, in order to report children, you do have to provide more than half of their support between those dates. If you have children, but somebody else is financially responsible for them, such as a parent, a partner, or anything like that, you would want to answer no to the question. It will also ask you if you have any other dependents other than your children or your spouse who live with you who will receive more than half of their support. In this particular scenario, those two questions were answered as no. The Fafsa will then proceed to ask you a couple of other questions regarding your dependency status. If you don't meet any of that criteria and click none of the above, it will have you proceed to report parent information. One other question that is asked on the Fafsa is, on or after July 1st, 2020, were you homeless or were you self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? If you answer this question as yes, you want to make sure you get in contact with your financial aid office. If you answer no, you'll want to proceed next. After proceeding next, whether you answered yes or no to the last question, it's going to basically tell you whether they believe you're a dependent or an independent student. In this particular case, this particular student is considered a dependent student and will be required to provide a parent information on the Fafsa. You will want to leave the question at I will provide information about my parents and click next. Students who may have a very special circumstance, a very sensitive circumstance, can contact the financial aid office for more information. Otherwise, you will want to move forward and provide your parents' information. It will ask regarding your parents' marital status. The Fafsa will ask if your parent is single, married, separated, or divorced. And you will want to provide a date of when your parent became married or remarried, or even divorced. Here, you will be required to put down your parents' information. You want to report their social security number. If your parent does not have a social security number, here you will indicate all zeros. When you indicate all zeros, it will ask you to confirm. It will first appear to be an error, but the Fafsa is simply wanting you to confirm that the information is correct. After you've provided that information, you want to provide your parents' legal name. So for parents with socials, you'll want to put down their name as it appears on their social security card. So that will be the full last name. If there are multiple last names should be reported. You'll want to report your parents' first initial, their date of birth, and an email address if they have one. You will then need to proceed to report a second parent. If you do not have a second parent, you can skip this question. If you do have two parents that are living together but are not necessarily married, if they are living in the same household, you will still want to report both parents. Then you will be asked about your parents' state of legal residence. So this will be different from their legal residency. So someone can be a resident of a particular state without necessarily being a permanent resident. So this is having to do, similar to the question that was asked of you, where you have been living for the last 5 years. So they will want to know what state your parent has been living in. Next, you will be asked about your household size. Because you've already reported in this particular scenario 2 parents and 1 student, it'll automatically show that your parents' number of household is 3. On the third field of this page, there is an option to list additional family members. If there are children or people in the household that your parents are supporting more than 50% from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th of 2022, then they can be reported here as well. So they have to live in the household. They have to be, your parents have to be providing more than half of their support, and your parents must continue to provide their support from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th of 2022. After you've entered that number, if there is any, it will automatically update your household. You will also want to report how many of those people living in the household are attending college. Something to make note of is that as you move forward through the application, the Fafsa does automatically save your progress. So if you see up towards the very top, there's a little green check mark indicating that the application is being saved. Here is where you'll go ahead and report your parents' financial information. You will want to have their federal tax return handy. You will go ahead and indicate here whether your parents have completed their IRS tax return transcript or tax return already. So in this scenario, the parent has already completed it. They have filed an IRS 1040, and their filing status is married filing joint. All of this information can be found on the federal tax return that your tax preparer provided you. You will be given the option of linking the information with the IRS. This tool is extremely beneficial because if you should become selected for verification in the future, you will not be required to provide copies of your taxes if you've linked with the IRS. If you're not able to link with the IRS, you are able to populate the information manually. Here is where you indicate how you will proceed. So in this particular scenario, we're going to populate the information manually, so you'll click No Thanks. One very important tip about filling out the Fafsa is every question that pertains to your financial information will tell you exactly where to look on your IRS tax return form. In this particular question, your parent is being asked what their adjusted gross income was for 2019. The Fafsa instructs you to go to your tax form and look at line 8B. Whatever information is on line 8B of your taxes, you'll want to enter the exact amount. Here you're seeing $28,000. But it's not likely to be 28,000 even. It's usually a different number ending in 01 or any variation. So you'll want to put in not an estimate, but the exact amount that's found on the line 8B. Then you will be asked about any money that they earned from working, such as wages, salaries, or tips. This portion is usually found on the W-2s. It can also be found on the 1040 form. Here it shows that you can go on to line 1 and schedule 1, lines 3 and 6, and find that information. There's also a schedule 1 that you can look at. It will depend on the type of forms that you will file. You will have to report for both parents if you have two parents that work. If you have one parent that didn't work, or you're only able to report one parent on the Fafsa, then the second one can be left blank. Here you will ask if your parents filed a Schedule 1. You will want to select No if your parents did not file a Schedule 1 or if they only filed a Schedule 1 to report unemployment compensation, educator expenses, IRA deductions, student loan interest deductions, or Alaska Permanent Fund dividend, or virtual currency. If you need more information on whether you should answer yes or no, you can go ahead and click where it says click here for more information. The FAFSA will also ask if your parent, as of the day they're filling out the FAFSA, is a dislocated worker. And lastly, it will ask if in 2019 or 2020, did you, your parents, or anyone in your parents' household receive benefits from any of the federal benefit programs listed below. Take a look at each of the programs and mark any ones that you received. You can mark multiple or you can mark none of the above if none of them were received. Next, you will be asked to enter your parents' income tax for 2019. This amount should be different from the adjusted gross income that you first reported. This is the total amount of IRS form line 14 minus Schedule 2 line 2. So this amount usually tends to be smaller than your adjusted gross income. You will then be asked, did your parents have any of the following items in 2019? They will be asked a variety of questions on whether they received combat pay, education credits, untaxed portion of IRA distributions, and more. You will also be asked if your parent paid any child support. This should not include child support for children in the household. They had any earnings for cooperative education programs offered by a college, and any taxable earnings from need-based employment programs. Then you will be asked if your parent received any of those items, such as child support, housing allowance paid to military or clergy members, and more. Next, you will be asked about your parents' asset information. You will want to report your parents' total current balance of cash, savings, and checking accounts. As of today, what your parents' net worth investments are. This will include real estate, but not the home that you live in. You will also be asked, as of today, what the net worth of your parents' current businesses or investment farms are. You don't want to include a family farm or a family business with 100 or fewer full-time or full-time equivalent employees. Once you've completed the parent information, you will be asked for student information. We may have some students that filed a tax return. You will want to report your tax return information here. If you filed a tax return, you should have a copy of the tax preparer that can help you fill this out just like you did with your parents. You will be asked whether you've already completed, what type of form you filed, and what your tax filing status is. All of these should be available for you to view on your form. You may also link your tax information to the IRS or populate it manually. In this particular scenario, we will be populating it manually, so you will click No Thanks. Here you will report your adjusted gross income, found on line 8B. Once again, any of the questions on the FAFSA should tell you specifically where you can look at on your tax form to find the information. For a student that worked but didn't file taxes, they might answer this question a little bit differently. You will be given the option of indicating that you will not file. If you did not file but did work, just keep in mind that you will need to report whatever wages you earned a little later on. This is where you would report your wages from working. You can pull this from your tax forms, or if you didn't file, you can pull it from your W-2s. If there are multiple W-2s, you want to go ahead and add all of the amounts of your W-2s for 2019 and indicate them here. If you filed taxes, you'll want to enter the amount of your income tax for 2019. Similarly to your parents, you will also be asked if you received any combat pay, any education credits, untaxed portion of IRS, and more. You will be asked also if you've paid child support, had earnings from a co-op program, or taxable earnings from need-based employment programs such as federal work study. Then you will be asked if you received any child support for any children, any housing allowances due to clergy or military, and more. You will want to report your current balance of cash, savings, and checking accounts, and whether you have any investments, real estate, or businesses. Once you've reached this page, it means that you've completed your Fafsa. If you have any situations that are different than what we've shown today, you may want to contact your financial aid office for a little bit more information. You will then, in order to submit your Fafsa, want to proceed to sign and submit. This question will ask you if you are the preparer. It's very rare when you have a Fafsa preparer. In any event, the Fafsa is free and you should not be charged for completion of the Fafsa. In this particular scenario, you're going to want to answer no. Once you've answered no, you will be given a summary of all of the information that you provided on your application. You want to thoroughly review it and make sure that everything looks accurate before you proceed. You will then arrive at this page where you will be asked to sign. You will see both an option for the student and the parent to sign, as in this scenario, we are looking at a dependent student. You will want to click Provide Signature under Student. You will thoroughly read this information before proceeding and then mark Agree if you agree. Because you logged in with your FSA ID, you will click Sign this Fafsa, and that will electronically sign your Fafsa application. You will then need to provide a parent signature. Depending on which parent is going to sign the Fafsa or who's created the FSA ID, you want to first click Provide Parent Signature, and then you will choose which parent will sign. You will click Sign as Parent 1 or Sign as Parent 2. Thoroughly look at the information and then agree if you agree. Here, you will be given the option of having your parent sign with their FSA ID by putting in their information. If your parent does not have a social security number, or if for whatever reason they're unable to sign with their FSA ID, towards the bottom of the page, there's a box that says Other Options to Sign and Submit. You will want to click there if your parent doesn't have a social security number to sign with that option. If not, you will click Sign this Fafsa after you've entered the FSA ID. If you have not signed with your FSA ID, this is the pop-up that you'll receive. You'll want to click where it says Print a Signature Page. That will generate a signature page for you with your information, a section for your parent to sign, and it will also give you a mailing address. The signature pages should be sent to Fafsa and not directly to your college or university. So you will want to make a copy of the signature page after your parent has signed, and you will want to mail it to the signature or to the address listed above on the page. Whether you've used a signature page or signed with the Fafsa, you will then be able to proceed to submit your Fafsa. If you've signed with an FSA ID, you will see that it shows signature status as signed electronically, and then you will click Submit My Fafsa Now. After submitting your Fafsa, you will see the following confirmation page. It will show information about what happens next, your EFC number, which is what your school will use to determine your eligibility, and something you're not seeing displayed here but will be shown on the application is an estimate of what you may receive at the university. So it is an initial estimate. You want to make sure that you review your award letter when your school is ready to send that out, but it'll give you a rough idea of what you can expect. Independent students. For independent students, you will be filling out the information just as our dependent scenario did. You will first log in with your FSA ID. You'll select the appropriate year. You'll create your saved key and answer all of the student demographic information. And then you'll make your school selection. After you've filled out those sections, exactly the way we did in our dependent student scenario, you will also arrive to the dependency status question. So something to keep in mind for dependency. For the 2021-2022 year, if you were born before January 1st, 1998, you will be automatically selected as independent. If you're married, you could also be independent, and a few other options that you will be given when filling out the Fafsa. Having a child that you support financially 50% or more could also make you independent, but keep in mind that if you are not born before January 1st, 1998, and you're not legally married, if you have a child but do not financially support them, you will not be considered independent, and you'll want to proceed to provide parent information. In this particular scenario, our student has already been established as an independent student and is going to indicate their marital status as of today. They're going to go ahead and indicate whether they have children that they support 50% or more. Because this particular student is independent because of age, they will automatically have their household size populated as 1 based on their answers. They will go ahead and indicate how many are in college. Next, even though they are considered an independent student, they are presented with the option about reporting information about their parents. Because this student is an independent student, they are not required to provide information about their parent. So they will want to go ahead and answer no and then proceed. Next, the student will be asked information about their tax return. They will want to indicate if they've already completed their tax return, what type of tax return they filed for 2019, and their filing status according to their tax return. In this particular scenario, we're going to go ahead and link to the IRS. After clicking Link to the IRS, you will get this pop-up saying, "You are now leaving this page. Click OK to continue." Your Fafsa information will be saved if you choose to continue, so don't worry about clicking OK. For the dependent students that choose to link through the IRS, you will get the similar message if you choose to do so. The following message will appear from the IRS, letting you know that it is a U.S. government system and it is for authorized use only. You will want to click OK. The next thing you will want to do is populate all of the information. It should appear exactly the way it is on your federal tax return. Your first and last name, your social, your date of birth, your filing status, and whatever address was used to file your 2019 federal income tax return. After you populate the information, you'll go ahead and submit. You will then see this page here. It will give you a data elements that will be transferred from the IRS to the Fafsa page. You will then want to click the first option that says Transfer my tax information onto the Fafsa form. So there is a little checkbox and then you will click Transfer Now. If you click the second box, it will not transfer the information. So it's very important that you select the first option and click Transfer Now. We have now transferred your information from the IRS website to the Fafsa. It will give you confirmation right in the middle of the page there that says Transferred from the IRS. You will want to click Next. It will then ask if you filed a Schedule K-1. You will answer yes or no to this question. Because we've transferred all of your information from the IRS, you will next see Transferred from the IRS. You will then ask if you filed a Schedule 1. You want to select No if you did not file a Schedule 1 or only filed a Schedule 1 to report unemployment compensation, educator expenses, IRA deductions, student loan interest deduction, Alaska Permanent Fund dividend, or virtual currency. If you need more information, you'll want to click where it says Click Here. All of that information will also be transferred from the IRS. You will then be asked, as of today, were you a dislocated worker? You will then be asked to verify your information. Most of the information is transferred from the IRS, as you can see on the screen here, but it will ask if you received any combat pay or any college grants or scholarships that are reported to the IRS on your income. So, like AmeriCorps benefits, and so on. It will also ask, towards the bottom of the screen, if you had any untaxed portions of IRA deductions. You will want to answer yes or no. The rest of the information should be transferred from the IRS. Next, you will be asked if you paid any child support, had any earnings from a co-op program, or had taxable earnings from a need-based employment program such as federal work study and need-based employment portions of fellowships and assistantships. Next, you will be asked if you received any child support, any housing or living allowances paid to members of the military or clergy, and more. You want to answer those accordingly. You will then be asked information about your assets. You will want to report your current balance of cash, savings, and checkings accounts, and any net worth of investments, including real estate, but not the home that you live in, and as of today, the net worth of your current businesses and investment or farms. You don't want to include a family farm or a family business with 100 or fewer full-time employees. Next, you will be asked the information on whether you are a preparer. You'll want to go ahead and answer no because you're preparing the form yourself. Then you will be taken to this page, where you will once again review the information that you reported for accuracy. If everything looks correct, you can go ahead and proceed. You will want to read the disclaimer and agree to the terms. Because you've logged in with your FSA ID, you'll want to click Sign this Fafsa. Once you've signed your Fafsa, you will see the signature status of Signed Electronically, and you can proceed to submit your Fafsa. After you've submitted, you will see the Congratulations confirmation page. An example of the confirmation page would be shown here. This will show you your estimated family contribution and potential estimated awards that you may be eligible to receive. These can vary by school and by cost of attendance of schools. So this is simply just an estimate. You want to make sure that you thoroughly analyze the award letter you receive from your school once they have sent that out to you. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any further questions or have any special scenarios that you'd like to be considered, you'll want to contact your school's financial aid office.